They built him to end wars. He chose to save lives instead. The sky over planet Virel was calm. But deep in the jungle, the ground shook with a sudden boom. A burning ship crashed through the trees, leaving fire and smoke behind. Birds flew away in panic, and strange creatures hid in their caves. Within minutes, a rescue team of alien medics and soldiers arrived at the crash site. They moved carefully, checking for life, weapons ready. The ship looked humanoid, damaged, and covered in black scorch marks. Everyone thought no one could survive that fall. Zyra, a young alien medic with silver blue skin and glowing eyes, stepped into the broken ship. She pushed aside a metal panel and gasped. A man was lying there, still breathing, covered in blood, with metal shards in his chest. He was human. His body was broken, clothes burned, and his skin pale, but his chest moved slowly, like he was holding on to life with pure will. "This is not possible," Zyra whispered. The soldiers looked at her, confused. Zyra quickly scanned the man with her med tool. Her face went pale. "His heart is damaged," she said. "Lungs failing, brain trauma." She looked at the numbers again. He should be dead. They carried the man to their medical transport, flying him to the alien base. Zyra stayed beside him the whole time, watching the monitor. Every reading said the same thing: he was dying, but he wouldn't die. He kept breathing. He kept fighting. When they reached the base, they placed him in a recovery pod. Zyra sat outside the glass chamber, staring at the monitor. The other medics talked behind her back. "Why do you care so much about a human?" one asked. Zyra ignored them. There was something strange about this man, something she couldn't explain. Hours passed, and the man still didn't wake up. Zyra decided to scan deeper. She connected her mind-link device and entered the man's neural signature. For a moment, everything was dark. Then images, a burning city, screaming voices, labs filled with machines. And then, her face. She saw herself in his memory, looking younger, standing beside him in a white room. Zyra pulled back from the link, breathing fast. "That's impossible," she said, her voice shaking. "I've never met him." Just then, the man's eyes opened. They were green, bright, and clear. He looked around, confused, then focused on her face. "You're alive," he said weakly. "I found you." Zyra stepped back, shocked. "Who are you?" she asked. "How do you know me?" The man smiled faintly. "You told me to survive," he said. "You said, no matter what, keep going." Zyra stared at him, heart pounding. She didn't remember saying that. She didn't remember him at all. The base alarms suddenly beeped. A high-ranking officer stormed in. "What's going on here?" he barked. "The human is awake." Zyra nodded, still watching the man. "Yes, but there's something wrong," she said. "He should be dead." The officer looked at the screen and frowned. He turned to Zyra, voice low. "Do not tell anyone what you saw in his mind," he warned. "This is above your rank." Zyra didn't respond. She knew something was being hidden, something big. That night, she couldn't sleep. The human's face haunted her thoughts. Why did he remember her? Why was he still alive? And what did he mean when he said, "I found you"? She returned to the medical bay quietly. The lights were low, the hallways empty. She stood in front of the pod, watching him rest. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the man sat up inside the chamber. His eyes locked on hers again. "I need to talk to you," he said, "before they erase me again." Zyra froze. "Erase you?" she whispered. But before he could answer, the power cut out, alarms blared, and doors slammed shut. Something was coming for him, and she had no idea why. Zyra stood frozen in front of the recovery pod, her eyes locked on the humans. He was supposed to be sedated, but he sat up like he had full control of his body. The base lights flickered again, and outside, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Zyra moved fast, pressing the manual override to open the chamber. The man stepped out, stumbling a little, but still moving with purpose. "I don't have much time," he said, his voice low. "They'll shut me down if they catch me." Zyra grabbed his arm to steady him, confused and alert. What are you talking about?" she asked. "You were nearly dead this morning." The man looked at her with calm, steady eyes. "My name is Kale," he said, "but that's probably not in their files." He touched the side of his head, as if checking something inside. They've wiped me before, but the memories are coming back faster now. Zyra shook her head. Still trying to understand. You should be resting, not walking, she said. Your organs were shutting down. Kale smiled weakly. Yeah, that's the thing, he said. They're not exactly mine anymore. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest. Zyra felt a faint vibration, not a heartbeat, but something artificial, smooth and controlled. A synthetic core, pulsing like a machine. Her eyes widened. You're not fully human, she whispered. Kale nodded. I was part of a test, an experiment that was never supposed to exist. He said, they called it Project Titan, and I think you were part of it too. Zyra took a step back, suddenly cold. I don't remember anything like that, she said. Kale looked at her with sadness. You wouldn't, he replied. They erased you. Before she could ask more, the hallway lights turned red. A voice came from the speakers. Calm but cold. Containment breach detected in Medical Bay. All personnel stand down. Kale looked at her, panic rising in his voice. They found me, he said. We need to leave now. Zyra hesitated for only a second before nodding. She guided him through the back corridor, past storage rooms and empty labs. Her heart raced as they moved deeper into the base. She didn't know why she was helping him. She just knew something inside her said this was right. They reached an old lift shaft sealed long ago. Zyra hacked the control panel, and the door opened with a rusty groan. Kale coughed, leaning against the wall, his skin pale again. Even with strange tech in his body, he was still weak. She helped him step inside the lift, and they descended into the lower levels, forgotten, dark, and quiet. As the elevator stopped, the doors opened into a massive underground chamber. Rows of cryotanks lined the walls, covered in dust and cobwebs. Zyra looked around, confused. This place isn't on the maps, she said. Kale walked slowly to one of the tanks and wiped off the glass. Inside was another human, asleep, wires connected to his head and chest. Kale stared for a long time, then whispered, That was my brother. Zyra stepped closer, unsure if she was dreaming. These are all humans, she said. Some still alive. Kale nodded, his face grim. This is where they kept us after the project ended. He said, some of us were too strong, too smart, too dangerous. They hid us underground, erased us from history. Zyra felt something twist in her chest. If this was true, then her people had done something terrible. She looked at Kale again. Why did you survive? She asked. Kale looked at her, and for the first time, there was no fear in his eyes. Because you let me go, he said. You broke the rules and saved me years ago. Zyra's breath caught. I don't remember that, she whispered. Kale nodded. You weren't supposed to, he said, but maybe now. We can both remember who we really are. A deep sound echoed through the wall's heavy boots. Weapons charging. The soldiers were coming, and they were not here to talk. Kale stood straight, energy rising in his body. Something flickered across his skin, like tiny sparks of light moving through his veins. Zyra stepped beside him, her hand glowing with her own strange energy she didn't know she had. She didn't understand it yet, but she felt it. Something inside her was waking up, and whatever it was, it had been sleeping for far too long. The walls of the underground chamber trembled as boots struck the floor above. Kel's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, but it wasn't just light, it was memory. He knelt beside one of the cryopods, fingers brushing the frost-covered surface. Zyra watched him closely, heart still pounding from what he'd just said. She didn't know why her hands were glowing earlier. She didn't know why her heart raced when she looked at him, not from fear, but something older, deeper. He said she saved him, but she didn't remember saving anyone. Kale placed his palm on a small control panel beside the pod. The machine chirped softly. Reacting to his touch, Zyra stepped closer, curious and nervous at the same time. The cryopod hissed and unlocked slowly, warm air spilling out like breath. From a sleeping god, inside lay a girl, young, pale, and marked with strange blue patterns on her arms. Kale didn't speak, just stared at her like she was a ghost. Zyra whispered, Who is she? Kale responded without looking away. She's one of us, he said, from the original phase. Before they started deleting files and erasing people like names on sand. Zyra's voice cracked. How many phases were there? Kale turned. Toward her, 3. He said. We were phase 3. Zyra touched her own chest, suddenly aware of the faint vibrations inside her body. She wasn't fully alien anymore. Was she ever? She didn't know what she was. Her memories felt like paper soaked in water, words fading. Names missing, faces blurred, but Kel's voice pulled something out of her, like music calling the dead awake. The lab, he said quietly. It wasn't on Earth. Zyra blinked. What? Kale looked around at the cryopods, the lights, the structure of the room, this whole base. He said, It is the lab. Zyra stepped back, heart racing. No, she whispered. This is a medical outpost. Kel's voice hardened. No, Zyra. He said, It was a lab, and you were one of the lead engineers. She stared at him like he was speaking another language. That can't be true, she said. I'm just a field medic. Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice. They took everything from you, but they couldn't erase your instincts when I was dying. You reached for me not like a medic, but like someone who knew how to fix machines. Suddenly, a siren screamed through the old chamber. Zyra flinched, her mind snapping back to the present. Someone triggered a skin beacon, Kale said. Eyes narrowing. They're trying to locate us underground. Zyra ran to the console and began typing fast. She didn't know how she knew the code. Her fingers moved on their own. Muscle memory from a life she didn't remember. The lights dimmed, and the room shifted. Hidden doors slid open, revealing another hallway. Kale looked impressed. You're remembering, he said. Zyra didn't answer. She was shaking, not from fear, but from the feeling of the world breaking open inside her. What am I? She whispered. Kale didn't answer right away. Then he said, You're the reason I exist. Zyra turned sharply, but Kale was already walking toward the new hallway. The walls here were clean, white, and lined with strange symbols glowing. Faintly, she followed him, silence thick between them. Her chest hurt not physically, but emotionally, like she was walking toward a truth that might destroy her, and still, she couldn't stop. They reached a sealed chamber at the end of the corridor. Kale placed his hand on the scanner, and the door hissed open. Inside was a wide room with a single glowing orb suspended in the air. The orb pulsed softly, as if breathing. Zyra stepped in, drawn to it like it was calling her by name. Kale watched her carefully. This is a memory core, he said. Yours? Zyra blinked. My memory? He nodded. They didn't delete it, he said. They just locked it away. Zyra reached out slowly, fingers brushing the surface of the orb. A sharp pulse of light surged through her hand and into her mind. In one instant, everything changed. She saw herself in a white lab coat, standing over Kale, smiling as he woke for the first time. She saw the lab burning, people screaming, orders to erase the project, and her own voice, calm and sure, saying, If we survive, I'll find you. Again, Zyra dropped to her knees. Gasping, Kale rushed to her side. I remember now, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. You saved me once, he said. Now it's my turn. The walls around them began to shake again. Soldiers were reaching the lower levels. But this time, Zyra wasn't just a medic. She was something else. Something built to fight, and she was ready to remember the rest. Zyra stood in the chamber, staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Energy pulsed under her skin, soft and glowing. Not alien, not human, something in between. Kale watched silently, letting her adjust to what she had just remembered. The lab, the experiments. The day she chose to save him, all of it was real. It wasn't a dream or some strange illusion. She was part of Project Titan, and not just a witness. She had helped design it from above. The base shook again. They didn't have much time. Zyra stepped forward, scanning the rest of the chamber with sharp new focus. Her mind felt different, sharper, faster, like the fog had lifted and her real thoughts were back in control. Kale moved beside her and pulled back a section of the wall, revealing a hidden console. There's one more thing we need before we run, he said. Proof. He tapped the screen, bypassing security locks with ease. Files appeared, rows of names, test results, experiment logs, and videos. Zyra saw her own name there, tagged as lead integrator. Beside it was Kel's, Subject 9, Human Hybrid Core Stabilization Phase. She felt sick, They turn people into machines, she whispered. Kale looked at her. Calm but not angry. No, he said. They turned us into something new. Zyra opened a video file labeled Heart Prototype, Activation Test. It showed a lab filled with glass, wires, and doctors. On a table lay a human boy, Kale, younger and smaller, eyes closed. Then her voice came through the recording, initializing fusion pulse. It said. The boy's chest lit up with a golden glow, his body arched, and the screen turned white. Zyra turned away from the screen, heart pounding. She had been part of something that broke every law of nature. But what scared her more was the feeling she had when she watched the video. Pride, as if part of her still believed it was the right thing to do. A loud crack echoed through the corridor, metal doors being blown open. Kale turned to her, his voice calm but urgent. They're coming. Zyra nodded. There's a tunnel behind the power core chamber, she said. If it's still there, we can escape. They ran, the walls shaking around them, alarms blaring. Behind them, armored soldiers dropped into the chamber they had just left. One of them paused by the memory core and shot it with a plasma round. Zyra flinched but didn't look back. Memories were already returning to her. She didn't need the orb anymore. They reached the chamber, and sure enough, the tunnel door was still intact. Zyra activated the manual release and pulled Kale inside, just as the lights behind them exploded. The tunnel was narrow and cold, lit by flickering emergency lights. They moved in silence, breath tight, bodies tense. After several minutes of crawling through winding paths, the tunnel opened into a hidden exit chamber. Stale air filled the room, and an old platform led to the jungle surface. But before they could reach it, Kale stumbled and fell to his knees. Zyra rushed to him, grabbing his shoulder. What's wrong? Kale's body convulsed, lights flashing beneath his skin. His voice shook. Something's wrong with the core, he said. It's overheating. Zyra scanned him with her med tool. It was worse than she thought. His heart, if it could still be called that, was burning out, and there was no cooling system left in his body to stop it. He looked at her, sweat on his face. If it melts down, I'll die, he said. And maybe take this whole place with me. Zyra's hands moved fast, pulling open a hidden panel on his chest. You designed me to survive anything, he whispered. She met his eyes. I didn't design you to die alone, she said. With one final move, she placed her hand directly against the glowing core. Her own body responded, energy flowing from her into him, stabilizing the burn. Their hands locked together, light swirling between them like electricity made of memory. His core dimmed, stabilized, and when the light faded, they both collapsed to the floor, exhausted but alive. Above them, the jungle shook as ships passed overhead, scanning, hunting, but underground, in the dark, the beings were waking up to who they really were. Zyra looked at Kale, her voice a whisper. You should be dead. Kale smiled softly. So should you. Rain fell gently on the jungle above, but deep beneath the roots and rocks, a strange silence filled the hidden chamber. Zyra sat quietly beside Kale, her hands still faintly glowing where it had touched his chest. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. They had survived the meltdown, but something had changed. Zyra could feel it in her bones. Kale was no longer just an experiment. He was awake in ways even the creators hadn't expected. And her own body was reacting like it remembered more than she did. Kale slowly sat up, his breathing steady, but his eyes distant. I felt something, he said softly. When you stabilized me, it wasn't just energy. Zyra looked at him, confused. What did you feel? He turned to her, voice low. I felt your code. Zyra froze. My what? Kale nodded slowly. Your DNA isn't normal, Zyra, he said. It's not alien anymore. It's been rewritten like mine, but different. Zyra shook her head, standing up and backing away. No, she whispered. I was born here on Virel. I'm not some creation. Cal's eyes were gentle but firm. I'm sorry, he said, but your blood carries Titan markers. You're not a medic. You were one of us. Zyra's body felt cold. All her life, she thought she was just another soldier, another healer in the system. But now her own body betrayed her. If Kale was right, then everything she knew about herself was a lie. Kale stood and walked to the far wall, brushing away thick vines, and Dust. Behind it was a faded symbol etched in stone, an emblem she somehow recognized. 2 rings joined in the center, surrounded by star patterns. She stepped closer, touching the symbol, and her mind flashed. A memory returned. A sterile lab. Walls humming with energy. Her voice saying, "Begin the blood match protocol." Kel's younger face looking up from a table, scared but trusting. And another word echoed in her mind, pairing. Zyra turned to Kale, shocked. "We were linked," she said slowly, "not just genetically." Kale nodded. "You were the one assigned to stabilize me," he said. "Your blood carried the balance." Zyra sat down again, overwhelmed. "I thought I chose to save you," she whispered. Kale knelt beside her. "You did," he said. "You went against orders, against your creators. You didn't just pair with me, you protected me." Before she could speak, a soft beep echoed in the room. A hidden console near the wall lit up. Scanning the space, Zyra approached it slowly, and the screen blinked to life. Subject -9. Core link confirmed. Subject -4. Memory chain unlocked her. Name wasn't Zyra in the system. It was Subject 4. She stared at the screen as old files opened. Images and data pouring out. Documents, test logs. Images of her smiling beside Kale in a lab filled with hope and fear. One log entry caught her attention. Pairing successful, but unstable. If either subject dies, the other will suffer a chain breakdown. Recommend separation. She whispered the words to herself. If one of us dies, the other breaks. Kale looked at her in silence. It explained everything: why she could stabilize him, why their energy reacted together, why her memories returned. Only with him near, they weren't just linked, they were created as a system. Suddenly, static burst from the console, and a transmission broke through. A cold voice spoke. "We have your location," it said. "Return the prototype or be neutralized." Kale stepped forward, voice hard and clear. "I'm not a prototype anymore," he said. Zyra placed her hand on his shoulder. "They won't stop," she said. Kale turned to her. "Then we stop running." Together, they activated the emergency beacon override, rerouting power through the old systems. The console asked for one final code. Zyra didn't think. She typed a series of numbers her fingers remembered before her brain did. The screen flashed green, and a hidden vault opened in the wall. Inside was a single vial of glowing silver fluid. Kale stared at it, whispering, "That's the original blood match serum." Zyra picked it up slowly. "The key to everything," she said, "and the reason they tried to erase us." Above ground, enemy forces gathered in dropships, but underground, something stronger was awakening. 2 lost creations finally remembering what they were made for. Not war, not control, but to protect each other, and maybe to finish what they started. The jungle burned above them, smoke rising into the black sky. Dropships hovered silently, their lights sweeping across treetops like searching eyes. But none of the soldiers dared to descend. They were waiting for something, or someone deep. Underground, Zyra held the silver vial in her hand. It glowed softly, humming like it was alive. Kale stood beside her, staring at the old vault they had just unlocked. Inside were more than just records. There were weapons, armor, and a sealed black box. Zyra reached toward it, and the box hissed open. Inside lay a mask, sleek, dark, and marked with the same twin ring symbol from the walls. Kale stepped back, his voice quiet. "I've seen that before." Zyra nodded. "So have I in my dreams." She picked it up and turned it over. A strange part of her brain lit up. Old commands, old instincts. This wasn't just a mask. It was a command interface linked directly to the Titan neural core. When she slipped it over her face, the world changed. Data streamed across her. Vision maps, life signals, classified logs she was never supposed to see. And one name appeared in red at the top of the feed. Commander Korvac. Scale froze when he saw it. "That name," he said. "He was in the original lab." Zyra pulled the mask off, her breathing sharp. "He's still alive," she said. Kale clenched his fists. He was the one who ordered the shutdown, the erasure of every subject. Outside, the jungle trembled again. This time, something touched down, not a dropship, something heavier, older. Zyra felt it in her bones before the sensors confirmed it. Korvax had arrived. Kale looked at her, eyes steady. "They're not here to capture us," he said. "They're here To erase the past, Zyra turned to the open chamber behind them, where the old Titan tech still flickered with life. Then let's remind them what they made, she said. They suited up not in armor, but in hybrid gear designed for the original Titan pairs. Zyra's body accepted it like it had been waiting for this moment. Kel's core synced with hers. Instantly, light pulsing between them like a heartbeat, for the first time since the crash. He felt whole, and she no longer felt lost. They exited the underground vault and emerged into the lower jungle basin. The air was thick with smoke, and the sky flashed with distant lightning. Then, a ship descended in front of them, black, sharp, silent. A ramp extended, and a tall figure stepped out. His armor was smooth and ancient, his face hidden behind a reflective helmet, but his voice was unmistakable. "You should not exist," he said coldly. Kale stepped forward, and yet, here we are. Korvax tilted his head, studying them like an old puzzle come to life. "I gave the kill order myself," he said. "You were terminated," Zyra answered for both of them. "You forgot to terminate the part that remembers." Korvax raised a hand, and soldiers stepped from the trees fully armed, emotionless, but Zyra and Kale didn't move. Instead, they linked hands, and energy surged between them again. The jungle around them pulsed with the rhythm of their power. Kel's core lit up like a second sun. Zyra's eyes glowed with data and purpose. The Titan system was awake again. Korvax took a step back, unsure for the first time. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said. Zyra's voice was calm. "No," she said. "You don't." Then everything happened at once. Kale released a wave of light that knocked half the soldiers off their feet. Zyra moved through the smoke like a phantom, disabling weapons with a single touch. They weren't fighting like humans or aliens. They were fighting like one being to halves of a whole, built for balance and survival. Korvax raised his weapon, but it jammed. Zyra was already there, standing inches from him. She tore the helmet off his face, and what she saw made her freeze. He wasn't alien. He wasn't even fully organic anymore. His face was pale, stretched, with thin silver veins glowing beneath his skin. Kale stared in disbelief. "He's one of us," he whispered. Korvax laughed, bitter and broken. "I was phase 0, he said. "The first attempt. They built me to lead, then feared me when I wouldn't obey." Zyra stepped back, her voice shaking. "Why did you destroy everything?" Korvax looked at them with hollow eyes. "Because if I couldn't be perfect," he said, "no one could." Lightning cracked across the sky as rain poured down. Kale raised his hand, energy charging around his core. Zyra looked at Korvax. "One last time. This ends tonight," she said. Then the light exploded. The sky cracked open like glass. Dust swirled around the shattered entrance of the vault as the last prototypes descended from above, burning through the clouds like falling gods. Their ships weren't built for transport or speed. They were designed for one purpose: extermination. Rena and the humans stood side by side on the high ridge, wind tearing at their clothes, the broken land stretching below them like an open grave. The vault behind them was sealed, once more silent, unreadable, pulsing beneath the ground like a heartbeat held in breath. "They'll come straight for me," the human said. His voice had changed. No longer fragile, no longer unsure. There was steel in it now. Something had awakened inside him. Something old, but still his own. "I won't let them take you," Rena replied. He turned to her, smiling faintly through the pain. "You might have to stop me instead," he said. "If I lose control, if the core fully takes over." She cut him off, hand on his chest. "I'll decide then," she said. "But right now, you're still human enough to choose." And choose he did. The first prototype landed like a meteor, shockwaves rolling through the sand. Unit 05, Warborn, larger than the others, armored like a tank, glowing red veins running under silver skin. He saw the human and didn't speak. He just charged. Rena fired first, her rifle spitting plasma, but the shots bounced off. The human didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his hand. The light from the vault flared inside his veins, and the air bent around his palm like a storm folding into itself. He struck Warborn with a force that cracked the ground. Metal screamed, sparks flew, and Warborn staggered, but didn't fall. Two more landed behind him. Unit 03, Echo Slim, fast, eyes black as void, Unit 06, hollow a silent shadow. Covered in cloaking fields that flickered like shattered glass, 3 on 1, the human muttered. Rena stepped beside him. Make that 2, she said. Charging forward, the fight was chaos, light and shadow clashing across the broken land. Rena darted through cover, firing, moving, dodging, but they weren't just fighting machines. They were fighting memories. Each prototype seemed to remember the human in some broken way. A leader, a traitor, a brother, a ghost. Their attacks were precise, but not clean, like they were unsure if they wanted to kill or reclaim. The human held nothing back now. He moved like thunder, a storm with a mind of its own. But each strike, each blast of energy, cost him something. His body trembled, not from pain, from unraveling. You can't keep this up, Rena shouted, dodging Echo's blade. If I stop, we all die, he replied, eyes glowing like stars. And then Shade arrived, last of them. The red-armored figure stepped calmly through the smoke, her faceplate now open, revealing a face identical to Rena's, but cold, empty. The human froze. Rena stared. Shade smiled faintly. They modeled me after her, she said. So you'd hesitate. Rena raised her weapon. But the human lowered it. No, he said softly. This ends with me. He stepped forward alone, facing the circle of his own shadows. I was made to end wars, he said, voice echoing through the broken earth. But I choose peace. He slammed his hand into the ground. The vault answered. Light surged up through the land, swallowing the hill in a column of white. The prototypes froze, their systems locking up, not from damage, from recognition. A final code, buried deep. A signal only he could give. Stand down. Warborn dropped first. Knees in the sand. Echo fell next, followed by Hollow. Only Shade remained standing, her red eyes flickering. You were never meant to wake, she whispered. He nodded. I wasn't, he said, but I did. And she stepped back, vanished into dust, leaving only silence. The light faded, the vault dimmed, and the human collapsed into Rena's arms. Smoke curled from his fingers. His body flickered like dying fire. Did we win? He asked, voice barely there. Rena held him tighter. We survived, she said. That's more than most ever did. He smiled one last time. Impossible, he whispered. You should be dead, she said back softly, and he laughed weak. Fading, but free. The galaxy wouldn't remember his name, but the war was truly over, because the last weapon chose not to be won.